Hi there everyone. This is going to be a quick tutorial on how to set up a project so when working in groups and with multiple people, everyone can sort of contribute to that project but keep everything nice and neat and organized, because especially with groups where you've got a lot of artists contributing to one project, so file structures can fall apart very quickly, and it's very chaotic to then create a neat project which you can render from or move around. So, first of all, how do we create a project? You go up to the File menu and then go to Project New. Now this is saying, where do I want my new project? What do I want it to be called? So, I'm going to call this, we'll call it Team Megatron. And the location for our project is going to be University of Bolton projects. Okay, so by selecting that folder now, my project called Team Megatron will be created in the University of Bolton /projects folder. Now it then gives us these options down here where you can specify where do we want each of these different aspects of the project to go. So where do we want our images, our scenes, blah 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 blah. Now, just to use defaults for a standard setup, that will be absolutely fine for what we're doing here. It will create a nice little new folder for each of these different assets that you can save, so particles, scenes, images, etc. So if we just accept that now, then we can navigate into our projects folder, and then we can see that Team Megatron has been created, and we'll have all those subfolders created for us. Now, as long as we maintain this structure, things are pretty easy. But I personally add a couple of things. So if we go into scenes, one of the first things that I'll add is resources. And this is where generally anything can be saved that's a little bit messy, that you might want to pass around to other people, or you might come back to and want to share. That can be put in our resources folder, allowing this space here in scenes to be built up for our sort of our main shots or our main cameras that are going to be, or the main scenes that are going to be make up the animation. I also put a folder called Final Render Scenes. This is really so you can have somewhere where after your sort of project has been worked on for a while and a lot of people have contributed to it, when you have a scene which you absolutely know is a perfect scene to render from, then you can place that in here and you can build up like a shot list of final scenes which are going to be your very sort of top level final renders. Now we can look around in different places here. Source images. This is really, I use this folder for everything, for reference material and for anything sort of concept work, anything that I'm going to work from. I dump in here in neat folders. So it could be reference, we could have sort of photography or something, whichever sort of type of reference or images off the internet, the things that you've sketched yourself, can all gather here so you can look at all that material in one place. And in textures, I, rather predictably, have all of the textures that we're going to use in that scene. Now that's very important that the textures are all grouped together in one folder, because that allows you to move projects around much easier or do final renders much quicker, because your scene is very well organized and all your textures link out to the appropriate places. Now within your textures folder, say we're going to build Megatron, I would then create a Megatron folder, and then all of his textures would then go within this folder. So if you've got one artist working on Megatron and one artist, say, working on Prime, then you can have these separate folders. Means that one artist can bring in his work, drop his Prime folder into the textures folder, and then the project can be linked in and continued and worked from very easily, and you're not going to have sort of chaotic textures scattered everywhere. So once we're in Maya, how do we then connect to that project? Well, you go File, Recent Files, File, Project, and then Set. And then you navigate from here, and it's got Team Megatron here. So if we press OK there, now when I now go to open, it will open straight up into the T Megatron scenes folder, and exactly the same as if I were to save anything as well. It will open up straight there, so we can sort of very quickly. You're not wasting time navigating through menus. You very quickly access your project and all the data. So, say for example that we were going to build. We had some assets for this project, and we were starting to work up the project. Then, so we had Megatron and Prime that were already built. We would then move them into our project and put them in, say for example, our scenes and resources folder here. And then from this scene here, we can then import them in. But first of all, let's have a look at them individually. So let's have a look at Megatron. There he is. Now I didn't actually steal this model off a professional studio or anything. I actually modeled him from scratch myself. And a couple of things that I've done is in the outliner here, I've just kept things very, very neat. So he's in his own group, and he has each of his body parts all labelled up. But then what I've also done here is I've created empty groups above and below, which just form effectively dividing lines. So if your scene has got a lot of information in it, you can very quickly look in your outliner and identify that Megatron sits between these dividing lines. Now to do that, all you need to do is just make sure your selection is clear, and then click Control G or go Edit Group, and you'll click a null group, which is literally just a transform node by itself, and then you can just change the names or whatever you want to create a division. So say we are working on our first shot. So create a new scene. This is going to be our first shot here. Now first of all, let's save this out, and we're going to save it out into our main scenes here. And we know that our first shot is camera, it's our shot, and it's going to be battle intro. Now all I'm trying to do here is just create a name which is going to help us sort of have a naming convention that will run through. So this is the first shot in the sequence in our animation. It's called battle intro, and if the camera had a movement on it, like a tilt or a dolly or something, you maybe would want to put a description on that as well. That gives you a very clear indication of exactly what's going on with this file. So now let's have a look. If I import from our resources Megatron, then we can look in here, select him, press F just to zoom in onto him. Again, bringing up our outliner down the side. He's come in with his little division lines, so we know that that import sat between these two dividers. And then if we import his foe, Prime, then you can see again that Prime was set up with his dividers as well. So it's very clear, let's delete that one out, where all the information has come from each of those scenes. So if you're working with multiple artists on a project, it's very clear that, say, Jeff's work is here and Bob's work is here, and that's how it's all separated out, which makes it much easier to work in your main scenes. So if we were then to create a camera, and we'll just do anything with this guy for the moment, let's not worry about him too much. If you click T on a camera, then you can have control over both ends of the camera, which is quite nice, just so you can position him a little bit faster. We'll have a slightly sort of a shot looking up to get the incredible size and scale of Megatron and Prime doing battle, and then we will save our file out. But again, let's make sure we maintain this naming convention. We now have our camera name here in our scene. So let's copy that, let's come to our camera, and we'll paste that in. We'll actually press enter so it updates, and we'll paste it into the camera name here as well. So now this guy is nice and neatly named, and he sits in our scene. Our scene is nicely named. We can now save our scene, and then when we go to render this guy out, he's going to render out into, again, we've set the project, so it's going to be the Team Megatron images folder, but let's just create a subfolder within images, which again is the shot name. So we'll just go to a new folder here, and we'll put in camera 01 battle intro dolly, and then our frames can render out into here. So we will have a series of shots here. You might even have a folder called test, something like that, which you can just put out experimental frames into. But it means that your main subfolders are staying neat and your project is staying very organized, so you can move it around and wrap it up, and you know exactly where everything stands. So between you and your team, you are not wasting any time on just basic maintenance, because your project stays very neat at all stages. So that's the way that I would like to see you guys working. Fantastic. Cheers.